your girl for dinner. I'm the man year round, January to December. She take me out of my place, but I stay in my zone. Look me right in my face.
The third episode of the Justin Spaulding Show is live on YouTube. If you're seeing this somewhere else, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching live, if you're watching on YouTube, would love for you guys to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click subscribe. We're coming to you live every single week. This is the third episode already. This is the first time we've been here in 2021, which has already been an interesting year with some of the crap that's gone on. And I got people already like on Instagram and Facebook saying, did you see that some of the posts? I'm talking to Ryder, by the way. So I'm Justin Spaulding, if you don't know, entrepreneur, business man, real estate. I'm not a guru, but just a real estate investor. And I'm here with Ryder, who's our content guy, and he's a sales rep as well in our painting company. But have you seen some of the posts, Ryder, with someone said, I tried my free, the posts have said, it's been like the meme, and it's like, it says, I want to unsubscribe from my free trial, my free 7-day trial of 2021. Oh. Yeah, so I've seen that a couple times, and I'm just like, come on, let's go, change the mindset. You know, just like you posted the other day, and I talked about in the last show, in the second episode, it's never, it's always like the man in the mirror, and the woman in the mirror. Too many people let extrinsic things bother them or take them off course, and a lot of times we need to just look in the mirror and say, okay, well, I have a decision to make, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to control the things I can control, and I'm going to make this life the best life. I'm going to make this year the best year, this month the best month, this week the best week, this day the best day, this hour the best hour, minute the best minute. And when you do that stuff and just focus on what you can control, a lot of this other stuff, just it doesn't matter. Some of the events that happen in DC, I talked to my buddy who's the opposite end of the political spectrum as me, but it's like we're sitting there talking for like 2 hours. One of my best friends, Jake McCarty, I know he listens to the show, and it's like, the world, and most of us, 98% of us, we actually just trying to fix the Instagram feed here. We actually agree on, Ryder, can you try to get this to stay? Yeah. 95% of us actually agree on 95% of the things, 98% of the things, but then it's like the media wants to focus on the 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% of things that just drive both sides nuts and pin us against each other, and which obviously helps their business because their business is ratings and eyeballs and all that stuff, but it's kind of crazy. It's sad to see. It's a crazy world when you are looking on Facebook and Instagram or scrolling through and going through TV and MSNBC and Fox News and CNBC and CNN, and you don't know what the hell to believe, which that's just crazy. It's crazy to me, and it's insane. But start focusing on yourself. Look in the mirror. What can you do better to improve yourself, to improve your situation? Because a lot of that stuff, if you just turn off the TV and turn off the news, you'll start to realize, holy crap, like I'm doing just fine, not paying attention to all this junk, and you start to realize how little of an impact it actually, which is something Jake and I were talking about on the phone the other day. It's crazy how much of a little impact it actually will have on your life, day-to-day life, if you choose to not let it. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents on that and what's already happened in 2021. So welcome to 2021. If you're someone that sets New Year's resolutions, I'm not a big resolutions guy. I'm always someone that's like, a date. We talked about this on the last show too. A date is never gonna be something that like changes something. It's got to be just start now, right? Like every single day, whatever your goals are, if they change or whatever, and there's nothing wrong if your goals change, but start now. And don't get so focused on just the New Year's resolution. Live your life in a way that you can implement something now, that you can choose what you want to go after and implement something now that will start getting you there. Don't wait. Never wait. Never let a date hold you back. Or be the thing that pushes you, that you never let the date also be the thing that you think is going to push you forward, because it's not going to happen. It's just a date. That being said, Ryder, we want to go into the Ryder's got his Insta lunch ramen noodles and his protein drink, his little breakfast essentials over there. All right, first question. Do you have a traditional retirement savings like a 401k, or do you put all your money towards real estate? I do not have a 401k. I think a 401k is just a bunch of baloney. If you're trying to build wealth, the thing about a 401k, and I don't know all the rules about a 401k, but right, but I get it from a high enough level where I'm just like, why do you want to I'm 31, but from age 20 to 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, why do you want to put your money in something that then you cannot touch until you're and I'm once again 62, 65, whatever it might be? Why? It's not bringing you any cash every month. So it's not a cash flow producing investment. Why are you locking your money up in a 401k? You have zero control over it, and it's just going to sit there until you're X age and you're old, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now, you're older. And then I believe with the 401k and some of those plans, you only have a certain time frame, a certain window to be able to use a lot of that money up, or you're taxed on it unfavorably. So for me, it's like I've never looked at. I actually had a Roth IRA that I liquidated when I was like 22. It was only like $6,000 or something, but I paid the tax on it. I paid the penalty on it because I was moving it to real estate, and it was like a no-brainer. Like that $6,000, even though I only ended up, after the fees and penalties and stuff, I think I ended up with like $4,500 or $4,000 of that left, and then I put it with my other cash to go in and on a deal. It was a no-brainer for me to do that because that money has actually come out so much further ahead. I initially put in $20,000 into real estate in 2013, and it's something that's grown. I don't know, that initial 20 has probably grown 1,000x. I don't insane amount. So I'm someone that I'm investing in real estate and in businesses that I can control. I made an investment in my family had some veterinary practices and stuff like that, and I was a part of that, and I put money into that because I understood it. I had some control over it, and I just, that's where I put my money. It was a great investment. It worked out really, really, really well. And then I've put my money, obviously I invested a small amount into Prime Painters. I've invested via not taking a salary or deferring my salary from Spaulding Group. I've invested in Spaulding Group. I'm investing in real estate. Really, that's all I've invested in. So it's, a lot of people think, oh, a 401k, I'm spread out there because it's so diverse and, all this stuff. You realize that the richest people in the world, which, by the way, I think Elon Musk became the richest person in the world the other day or something, which is really just a bunch of BS, because it could be for like 10 seconds or 10 days or whatever, because if the stock prices change, it's a drastic shift. But he did so, and you look at the wins that he has. He had all his eggs in very, 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 very few baskets. I mean, and you look at what he's doing now, and once again, it's very, for how much resources he has, it's a very few amount of baskets. There's people that make $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, and because they're in a 401k or a Roth IRA or stocks or whatever, they're actually more diverse than Elon Musk is. And Elon Musk has $190 billion of resources, right, personally. And so that's just, it goes to show that you should really learn and then really go all in on those items that you're learning, and have fewer baskets, but really keep your eyes on those baskets, improve in those areas, and really drive your wealth that way. I don't see myself ever having a 401k, Roth IRA, or things like that. If that's what if that in a house is what you're banking on to build wealth, it's going to be a long journey, long up and down journey. Find something that's going to provide you cash flow every single month and has the ability to go up and appreciate in value. I know, right? I heard you talking through the walls the other day to someone out here, because you invested in Tesla, right?
Yeah, I had bought like 2019. Was that 38,000 now?
I heard that through the wall the other day. I was like on a phone conference and I was on speakerphone and I heard you talking to Ember, I think, and it's funny. But yeah, next question. So the question, and then I know that some people, obviously we're watching live, but I know some people listen while they're driving, so I also will read the question out loud. This question is a little bit long-winded, but I'll read the question out loud and then start to piece it apart. The question is, so what do you know about day trading? So I'm gonna put this out there. I know zero about day trading. Not gonna lie to you. I've looked into investments, day trading, long-term investments, real estate, etc. for years. I'm aware of the risks. I just don't know what to go for first, whether I just go for it or not. And then he asked, what do you recommend as a first step for investments and financial goals and or a career? And this is actually someone that graduated from Milton in 2018, which is my hometown. No? So I do not know anything about day trading. I'm never going to pretend like I do know about day trading. I know people that have had success day trading because, you know, and really the mentality there is I never want to prevent someone from having success. So I never want to deter someone from doing something, right? So just because day trading isn't what I do doesn't mean you shouldn't do it and it's not for you and you can't be successful there. But what I am saying is if you're going to do it, you better, the people that are successful, I bet there's been some point in time where they lost 10 grand when they really probably couldn't afford to lose 10 grand, but they kept going, right? The biggest thing though is if you're going to do that, you have to find a way to learn. You've got to find a resource to learn about what you are doing, and then you've got to implement that knowledge. And as you start to learn, it's like a funnel of learning, right? You're probably going to start by just reading everything you can, but then at some point, you know, I talked about before, you have less baskets, more eggs and less baskets. Well, it's the same thing with learning and who you're paying attention to with learning, because when you first start, you probably don't know who to listen to, right? So you find multiple people that are having success, but as you start and you funnel it down, as you start to go on your own venture, you got to be careful with who you listen to as well, because a lot of people are going to have contradicting opinions on what you should be doing. And if you're listening to too many people, you're going to get pulled into too many different ways within the first 2 years of doing something where you're just not going to take any action at all. So you got to find early on, you got to find just as much knowledge as possible. And then you got to start to whittle it down and be able to take the advice that makes sense to you. And then ultimately what's going to happen is you'll be able to write your own book. You'll be able to make your own videos telling people how to do it, because you're going to find your special sauce when it comes to day trading, if that's what you choose, that works for you. But once again, you got to give this thing 5 years. You can't just like jump into day trading, start to learn about it, win. This is what always happens too. People will win big in like the first week, and then all of a sudden they think they're God, and then they lose everything that they made, and then they're done. Okay, well, don't do that. If you're going to make a commitment, like make a commitment and learn, and don't make a decision and don't take action that's going to debilitate your financial situation for the 10 years to come, right? If you're going to take somewhat of a risk, take risk with something that you can afford to lose early on, right? Which that's different for everybody. Some people don't mind going completely back to zero because they can live, you know, they don't have kids and, you know, whatever, they can live relatively cheaply, right? So you have to make that best decision for you. I'm just going through the question in my head here. I think first, the more of the question was, you know, as I'm going through her question, more of it, part of it says, what do you recommend as a first step for investments and financial goals and or a career? My first step is once I said before, you got to learn, and then you got to find a way to make money. So then if you want to invest in real estate, you can invest in real estate. So that if you want to do day trading, you can day trade and do that. So you've got to find a way to have some type of an income stream. And ideally, you know, what you can do is, as you have a full-time job working 40, 60, 80, 100 hours a week, whatever it might be, to then also take 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a week and start to create another income stream, whether it's flipping stuff or direct sales, to be able to start to grow a stream of income that really where you're not capped, right? And sales is something that if you can learn to sell and get a sales role anywhere, or start selling your own stuff, like buying and flipping it, you're uncapped with how much you can make there, right? You just got to get out and put the work in. So that's my advice. And then save up money, and then be able, now you have some options, right? You might end up having a savings of $10,000 to be able to start another business, or to, you know, put into day trading, or, you know, to buy a single family home to flip, or whatever it might be, right? You might then get up to $100,000 of savings, and it's just rinse and repeat. Once you get to $10,000 of savings, find a way to get to 50. Then once you get to 50, find a way to get to 100, right? And then you want to be able to put that cash. You don't want to be married to the cash. You want to convert that cash into assets, and specifically cash flow producing assets, so that then when you put that cash to work, you might have worked up to $10,000. You put that cash towards something that can ultimately bring you more cash, while your other streams of income, like your 60 hours a week working at the job, and you flipping stuff is still paying you as well, right? Now you work up to 50. You put the 50 to work, right? Don't be scared to put money to work. Money in the bank isn't getting anyone rich and wealthy other than the bank. So my goal is whenever I get a check for $50,000, $100,000, $400,000, I'm pushing it back out of my bank account as fast as I can. I've had too much in my bank account the last 4 months personally, because it's like I know that I need to push that my personal money out so that I go back down to zero, but have that money go not towards cars, not towards shoes, not towards depreciating assets, but towards appreciating assets that also throw me cash flow, right? And then now, as you start to do that, your savings will actually accrue back into your bank account faster than you can put it to work, right? And that's the thing that, you know, Jeff Bezos and all the richest people on the planet, I mean, they have so many, the cash is just spinning. It comes in. I mean, Tesla, SpaceX, Elon Musk, that company will have cash in, and Elon can't push it out fast enough. He's like, how fast can I burn this cash to turn it into more cars, to turn it into, you know, more products, whatever, to put it towards more advertising, to get more brand awareness, or to get more sales, right? So then what do the sales do? The sales bring in more cash, right? And now what does he want to do? Again, he wants to push out the cash as fast as possible. So it's about cash flow. So that's a long-winded way to answer your question, but that is like some solid advice right there, I think. Yeah, I think like it's for real, it works. Next question. The question is, good morning. First off, thanks for responding. I just want to know how and if it is important to have a system in place to successfully run a real estate business, or does the old-fashioned technique still work, particularly in wholesaling? So I'm not really sure what he means by old-fashioned techniques. And I'm not sure, I guess, like when you're talking a real estate business, what does that mean? Is that like a brokerage? Is that property management? Is that real estate investing? Is it house flipping? But I'll just talk in broader, higher level terms that should work to any business. All businesses, it's important to have some type of system in place. Otherwise, you're always going to be just in that business with no systems, no help, no people, no processes. So yes, you need to find a way to have and implement a system. You know, like Prime Painters started that business in March, and I immediately tried to figure out systems in each area of the company, right? And it's like, well, okay, you have sales and marketing. That's one area. So we have a sales and marketing process. And then, once you get leads coming in, we have a whole process for getting the estimates done. We have an accounting process. We have a production/project management process. Right. So we have different processes, and same thing in, running the real estate. We have the different areas of the business, and each of them have the process. And, when a company is young, the processes change a lot. They're shaky sometimes because you're learning, and that's the only way you can know if your process works is by go out and do it. Ryder's got to see that, being a sales rep for Prime Painters here the last like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe now. Yeah. Where he's gotten to see, okay, like we start to get a process, and we've adapted that process actually kind of as he was coming in a little bit, and are still adapting it. But it's a process, it's a system. And what I'm always telling Ryder is, he's getting to the point, he's like, man, I'm with some of this stuff, I'm just getting a gut feeling, and I'm knowing how much I should charge for this. And I'm like, well, that's great, but we also still have to document how we're figuring it out, because there's going to be another sales rep, whether he gets replaced or he gets hit by a bus or like leaves, or if we just grow and we need 3 sales reps, we need a process and a system in place so that we can plug and play people, right? It can't just be person dependent on the person that's doing it currently and the knowledge that's in their brain. We got to get a process down on paper. And so actually with Prime Painters, Spaulding Group, and the properties, we're working on Playbooks, company Playbooks, being the sports background. And basically it's not the how, but it's the what. And it's basically checklists of like, these are all the things that need to be done to do this part of the cycle, whether it's a sales or production or, whatever, maintenance and, property management. We have to have the what down. So it's almost like a working checklist that new people can work from. And that playbook, it doesn't have the, It doesn't have the how to do it, but we do have other supporting documents or videos that we'll create that'll have more of the how to on the more complex items, right? And so just again, sports background. If you've played sports and if football is a great example, when you're talking about a playbook, well, you look down at the diagram and you see, if you're a receiver, you see the post pattern, like where you're supposed to cut in, like how many yards and where you're supposed to cut in. But what the playbook doesn't show you is the things that you learn on the field from the veterans doing it, right? When you watch them. And if you watch Davante Adams, Packers wide receiver, who will play in 10 days from now, has like 300 yards receiving. Ryder's shaking his head because he's a Bear fan. They got Trubisky and they're about to lose this weekend to the Seahawks. You're going to watch Davante Adams. If I'm a rookie, I'm gonna look at the playbook and I'm going to see, and I'm going to know where I'm supposed to go when they call, I right, X 300, X crossed, whatever, right? And I know where I'm supposed to go. But now when we get to the field and I know the process, right? There's the checklist kind of where I'm supposed to go, but I don't necessarily know all the hows. So your initial systems, they just need to be like the what, so that you kind of know what you're supposed to be doing, like a checkbox, right? But then the actual detail of it is going to kind of come in the field. You're going to learn more of the detail, and you'll watch Davante Adams. It's like, okay, it's 6 steps this way, then a half step that way with a 45-degree plant, a shake and turn your head, and then turn your head the other way and run to the post, right? You're going to see the detail on the field. You don't see all that in the playbook. So that's how we're starting to get our systems down in place. Is we have a playbook that has the checklist of what each role needs to do, what each process looks like, and then people, Dad, my dad's watching live. It's funny. He said, "Ryder's a Bear fan, really?" Yeah, Ryder should be fired for being a Bears fan.
And Ember.
Yeah, and Ember. Yeah, she's a Bears fan.
Yeah, she wears a Bears shirt.
I don't know that. So that's, coming up with a playbook, that's the processes, that's the what, and then the how is kind of figured out in the field or via a video that you create for your teams. But systems are important if you're looking to actually scale something. If you don't have any processes or systems, it's going to be hard to have a business that does more than, maybe $75,000, $125,000, $300,000 a year. And some people are like, well, $300,000 a year is a lot. But when you actually see all the expenses to run a business and you're like, whoa, it's actually not that much revenue, because there's actually not that much left over for all the work that you're doing, then you're going to need processes and systems and stuff like that to grow. Then on the other hand, it's like you don't want to be so systemized, though, where you have like a bunch of robots necessarily that, because sometimes it's personality where you need the personality too, right? So, you don't necessarily want to micromanage every single thing that goes on. There's some non-negotiables, but you just don't want to have it be too boxy, if that makes sense. Next question. Any advice for refinancing a value add deal? Yeah, my advice would be to make sure when you're going to the bank, I think Eddie asked this question. Eddie, shout out to Eddie. I don't know how many units you got right now. You can put it in the chat, but I think you're up to like, 30 or 40, 45 units, something like that. There's a guy that started taking some of my courses maybe 2 years ago. And he's just crushing it down in, Eddie, you're in Alabama, right? Somewhere down south, down that Alabama area. I think he asked this question. So any advice for refinancing a value add deal? The biggest thing is when you're in a value add deal, you've got a lot of cash going out because you're improving the property. And so you want to make sure that when you have it stabilized, and if it's been stabilized for 3 months or 5 months and you're looking to go refinance, because now you're full and all that stuff, you got to make sure that your trailing 12 months, which goes back 12 months of performance, basically your income statement going back 12 months in the rear to see what your most current year of operations has looked like. So like right now, if I was going to talk to a bank, it's January. So I'd go back, it'd be the last 12 months of last year. But if we're in April, I would be looking at, March 2020 through April 2021. That'd be right. Would that be 12 months or that 13 months? April, May. Yeah, I'd be doing May. Sorry. So if I'm in April of 2021 doing this, I'd need my financials from May 2020 through April 2021 to give me the most recent 12 months of operations. If I've been stabilized for 3 months, I need to make sure that those 3 months your financials will probably look pretty good. But when you were still putting a lot of cash into the deals, you need to make sure that those other 9 months, your financials look the way they should look. So your investments, your capital investments, and the cash that you have going out to buy, new refrigerators, to buy, and put in new carpeting and flooring, new doors, new paint, all those investments that are kind of more like one-time investments to get the asset up to where it needs to be, they need to be put below the net operating income. Because if you don't take that out of the net operating income, your value on that property is not going to be as high. So you want to move that below the net operating income, and it'll just be under your CapEx account. It doesn't mean you don't show the bank. You show the bank your total, all your cash out, but the bank will understand, oh, it's a capital expenditure. It means they really added a lot of value here. And then all of a sudden it's only showing up for 9 months because they got it to the point where they did the whole property. There's no more need for that much accelerated capital expenditure because you're done, right? It's the same thing if you own a business or you're looking to sell a business or get a loan or whatever. Any investments that you made into the business that are more of like one-time investments, you want it to be taken out of your, earnings so that it doesn't lower your earnings, because they're going to take a multiple to the earnings, and you want the earnings to be as high as possible so that you have the highest valuation. So that's got to be the way that you look at the real estate too. Eddie, I don't know if you're watching or not, but you can always ask another question. That should help. Next question. How do you think Dems in office will affect the real estate market and first-time investors? I think that prices are going to go up because usually with Democrats in office, there's usually more regulations that come into play. And when there's more regulations, things take longer. It's harder to get things done. When things take longer, when they're harder to get done, there's more expenses. So I think that prices will go up. I don't know. Like, Democrats have Congress, Senate, and obviously the presidency, but the Senate is so close that I don't know that it's going to actually make a huge difference, and it'll probably be not too much will probably change over the next 4 years, or at least the next 2 years, but who knows. But even if it was Republicans in office, it's still, I think over time real estate's going to go up. Is there going to be a point in time when real estate goes down for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? Yes. When is that going to happen? I don't know, right? But you should be buying deals that you can make it through. Yes, it'll be tight, but you should be buying deals that you can make it through worst case scenarios. And so I think that the worst thing you can do is just sit on the sidelines and not invest, or try to time the market. If you're just trying to time the market, you might be waiting forever, or whatever. But you still, at the same time, you can't just go buy every single deal. You gotta go look at 50 to 100 deals and then buy the best 1, 2, or 3 that you find, and then make sure that you can still operate and hang on to the deals when things do get bad. Even if things start to get bad next month or next year or 5 years from now, what's your plan when maybe some shit hits the fan? That was your question.
Yeah, it was.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Property management question. How do you prepare an operations budget? Basically what you do, now our chief operating officer and our controller and our managers and stuff are doing a lot of that. And then, we kind of look at them and approve them, obviously. But essentially what you're doing is you're looking at, okay, number one, for revenue, and with leases and the rents, okay, where are our rents at right now? What's the market? So you're doing a market study. What apartments do I have that are under market value, and when is that lease up, and when will that be more towards how much am I going to raise that rent, right? So each of your apartments, if you have a 10-unit building, you should go through, figure out the what the current market is, then compare it and see how much loss to lease you have. Loss to lease is the difference in where your rents are actually at and where the market is. So you could be a gain or a loss to lease. Like, you might be a leasing machine and a sales machine in some of these smaller properties, so your rents actually might be higher than the market. But if not, right, you want to see when the lease is up, and starting that month, how much are you going to plan to increase it, right? How long might it be vacant to get that increase, or will that person renew? Maybe to get that person renew, instead of taking it all the way up to market, maybe you just do a 2%, 3%, or 4% increase in the rent to try to keep them, right? To still get it a deal, but still for them, but to still see some upside for you and your business and your property. So that's the first side, is the revenue side, right? Is looking at what else can you charge for? Like, do you allow pets? If you already allow pets, are you charging anything extra? Here we charge $30 a month per pet. Plus, when people move in, we have a $200 pet fee up front, right? As revenue, not as a deposit, as revenue. So it's where else can you charge back for heat? Can you charge back for water? What things might you be missing that you can take advantage? Are you charging application fees? You should be charging application fees. Do you have late rent charges? Or can people just pay whenever and you just kind of don't make them abide by the lease? Do you even have leases in place, right? So making sure that from the revenue standpoint, you can maximize how much revenue you're bringing in. Then operations budget for the expense side, you look at the trailing 12 months of the previous year. And once again, where can you do better? Where'd you have waste? What might be getting more expensive right now? What investments can you maybe make to lower expense? So maybe, for example, if you as the owner are paying for water, is it worth it and you have a 10-unit building and your water seems to be outrageous? Well, you look at your toilets, okay, they're from the 1970s. Is it worth the investment of $2,000 to put in low flow toilets in this property? And what will be the difference, right? How much will that lower? Will that lower your water by 20%, 30%? So it's looking at all of those things and then trying to strive for it. Are you gonna actually hit the budgets that you set? I mean, usually we end up hitting more revenue than we set for the budget, but also things are usually more expensive than we plan on them being. Things always take longer and cost more than you think they're gonna be. So, but it's a good thing to go through. I like going through the budgets and preparing budgets more than anything, just to review to see where we have opportunity. That's really the big thing for me, to be able to see where we have opportunity and to ask the questions: what investments can we make to have more revenue, to lower expenses from there? So I hope that answers your question a little bit. After acquisition, how do you manage investor distributions? We start making distributions anywhere from 30 to 90 days after we acquire a property, and then we pay monthly thereafter. I'm not sure, what the question is really meaning or asking here. But yeah, we pay out monthly. Usually, we don't pay for the first 30 to 90 days. This next deal that we're closing in 2 weeks, we probably won't pay distributions for 90 days. The reason being is because of everything. Number one, we want to always secure the asset, understand the asset, try to find and figure out things that we might have missed during due diligence. There's always things that you might miss, or whatever, that need to just be taken care of. And then we want to make sure we have the asset secure. We want to make sure we can take care of anything that might potentially pop up that just needs to be taken care of, that we didn't find in due diligence, because it happens. What can go wrong will go wrong. And then right now, we'll still wait. Typically we're paying like 45 days as average. We'll start paying distributions or so, but we'll wait 90 just because with the whole COVID thing too, to build up a little bit more reserves and, have that cash on hand. And then when we start paying out, more conservatively. So even if the cash was there to pay out a 10%, 9%, 10%, 11% return right away, we're going to start with, 5 to 6%, 5 to 6.5% to be more conservative, to keep building up. With cash that's left and above and beyond those distributions, we'll save and add to our reserves as well, to prepare for whatever might come. When COVID happened and the world shut down, like March 6th of 2020 or whatever it was, the first thing I did was look how much cash we had on hand, and I realized that we could have had zero revenue come in for 6 months on average across all the properties, and still would have been able to find a way to make it. And that was on average across our whole portfolio. So it never hurts to have, cash on hand. And that made me feel a little bit better. Obviously things never got that worse. We ended up collecting, 93 to 95% of our rents, the rest of the last year. So it worked out, but that's how we handle that. Be a little bit more conservative up front. And then you can get more aggressive as you start to really understand the asset and make investments that are taking care of problems that might come up, to eliminate them from coming up and pushing them back to a later date when you have to take care of them again, whether it's 7 years or 10 years from now. Next. The question is, at how many units did you hire your first employee? What was his or her position, and was it full or part-time? The first employee we hired when there was 8 units and basically it was just to be a part-time maintenance tech slash, mowing the lawn. And I gotta decline that quick on that call. And it was just part-time. I mean, this is different for each person, because it's like, what are you good at, right? Well, for a while I was like doing small maintenance things. Like if there was a sink that was leaking or whatever, I'd go try and figure it out. And like back in 2013, 14, it's just what I had to do. And I'm not good. I'm not talented. I can hardly change a light bulb. And so that's why that was the first thing that I'm like, I got to find some type of, maintenance tech, and that'll, start doing some of this stuff. And then eventually I wanted to get the lawn mowing off my plate, because I was mowing the lawns. Because I needed to be able to put my focus elsewhere. So I got, that same person started mowing the lawns. Then as we grew, let me think for a second. Then as we grew, the next thing that we really bought was the storage units. And that's where, my buddy who found the deal, Josh Eastman, he did a lot of that. He did probably like 75%, 85% of the management of that, like filling the storage units and all that stuff. And he had, we paid him to do that, but also, he had equity in the deal. And we did that just once again, so it could keep me free to still continue pursuing to get more properties and do all that. Then when we closed on a 88 unit, we ended up, when we started managing that in-house, we ended up hiring a bookkeeper first, and she was full-time, and that's Ava, and she's still with us today as our controller. I'm just trying to think. And then we hired a property manager and a maintenance tech. And by the time, when you're around 100 units, that's about when 100 unit property will typically have one full-time manager, one full-time maintenance tech. So you can kind of do the math. If you're looking to buy 50 units, it's probably a part-time job, depending on how old the units are, depending, on a lot of different things. But on average, talking high level, on average, if you're looking to buy 50 apartments, odds are that could be, if you're good at maintenance and at like sales and leasing, all that stuff, it could be a full-time job, because really it's a 50% half-time job, 20-hour-a-week job being the manager there, and a 20-hour-a-week job doing maintenance there. And once again, if you're at 100 units, then you'll likely have one full-time manager, one full-time maintenance tech. If you have 200 units, you'll likely have, two managers, or it'd be, one leasing agent, one manager, and then you'll have two maintenance techs. That's typically how it goes. Now, as you get properties to the point, the more work the properties need, or the worse shape they're in, on a sliding scale of A property to D property, whatever the worst of a location it's in, it needs more attention, right? It probably takes a little bit more time. So if you have 100 units that are brand new, class A, like it might only be a 20-hour-a-week job being a manager at something like that, 20 to 30-hour-a-week job. And it might be, maintenance tech might be a 20-hour-a-week job being a maintenance tech at a property like that, on average, just because it's newer, less deferred maintenance, less maintenance requests and work orders coming through. So that's that's how to think about it. But to answer your question too, like, and I think because you're asking what you should do is my guess, I can't tell you what you should do. It depends what your strengths and weaknesses are, right? It depends how fast you want to grow. It depends how profitable you want to be, or how much you want to put into the business from a dollar standpoint. Because like right now we're at a point where Spaulding Group will actually, cash flow will actually be like negative $100,000 this year, ballpark, because I'm making investments in towards the people and the infrastructure that aren't going to pay me today. Right. So some people don't understand what that means, but basically what it means is it's taking me out of certain roles. So I'm paying for that to then still be able to, so I can go out and keep growing and acquiring. Right. So you could be at 50 units, but have 6 staff if you wanted to, because you got growth plans and you want to be able to plug and play units and have the staff ready already. You could do that. Right. You could have excess capacity so that you can grow faster, but it's an investment. Right? You got to have money or give up ownership or, whatever. So it really just depends what your goals are, what you're trying to do, what your current financial situation's like, what you're good at, what you're bad at. If you hate being the person that's going over to fix stuff, then find a part-time maintenance tech. If you suck at or hate doing the books every month, find a part-time bookkeeper. If you've got 10 units or 20 units or 30 units, that's the route you'd go. And if you're really looking to scale your business and you're really good at doing deals and getting investors lined up, that's what you have to spend your time doing. So you got to find a way to pay people to get you out of the other things. And if your property's too small or your business is too small to actually afford it, then you got to make other investments in to the whole thing to make it work and to keep it afloat. Next question. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I always ask Ryder if it makes sense or not because he's like learning too.
Yeah.
So, next question is, I just want to see quick if Instagram has any questions here that popped up. I saw there was some, but all right, Instagram, go join us live on YouTube to see the rest of this. Go to the story and swipe up. Go YouTube and subscribe. Swipe up on my story. Go to YouTube, watch us live, and subscribe. That's what I'm trying to say. Tongue twister. See ya. So the next question is it a bad idea for me to go in on a property with other people, especially my first one? No, it's not a bad idea. I mean, there's so many people out there that want to have success or do great things. You can't do great things alone, period. So no, it's not a bad idea. Should you be aware of like who you're doing business with and who's involved? Yeah, absolutely. And what their roles are? Yeah, for sure. You should be aware, and you should pick wisely and all that stuff. Especially if you're just starting, but you got to find a way to start. And sometimes you need partners and all that stuff. I mean, I think when we close this deal in a couple weeks, we'll have 65 investors or so. So go make it happen. Maybe you start with family. Maybe you start with close friends. Maybe you know some business owners in the area that you can go pitch a deal to or whatever. But yeah.
I got a question ahead of that.
Yeah.
Say you partner with a random person, like a friend or something. If you want to get a loan, who would the bank look at? Would they put it together, like look at you guys together, or just pull one of your credits?
They can look at you. You can have as many guarantors on the loan as you want. So like it could be you two.
So would it help to have two?
Yeah,
for a
it could.
loan,
Yeah, or three, or whatever, right? Because they'd look at all your guys' income. You guys would all be liable for it. So yeah. So like when we're doing these big deals, there's more than just me signing on the line for debt.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to do that at this point alone. So we got 3 of us total that are going out to get 20 million in loans at a time, or whatever, right? My buddy, I wanted to throw this one in there. Ryder shaking his head no, being a Bear fan. Grant Stewart asked this question. I don't know if Grant's listening, but Packers win the Super Bowl. Go Pack, go, baby. We need that championship, my bro. Yes, the Packers are going to the Super Bowl. I said it. I say it every year, though. And it hasn't happened since, 2010. So, and we won in 2010.
I think the Bears are Tampa. For them.
Bears are Tampa Bay? I mean, I know the Bears aren't. Bears don't have a shot at going to the Super Bowl.
This is your last question, so I mean.
This is, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all in on the Packers. All in on the Packers. Tom Brady's, obviously, he gets in the playoffs, like, he could rock and roll with it, and he could this be his 7th, right? Be his 7th Super Bowl win if he wins one. So yeah, I think we're gonna get back there this year. It's got to go through Lambeau. We just got to keep winning. Not gonna have as many fans in the stands, but that's all right. And we're gonna go to Tampa. So
that's for me.
What?
Hiring property management versus in-house property management.
So I mean like third-party property management.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on third-party property management versus in-house property management. Anytime you can do stuff in-house, it's like you as the owner, if you have equity in it and you're the one responsible for reporting to the partners and all that stuff. Anytime you have in-house, it's always going to be ran better. We've got experience with 2 other property management companies, and one experience was just an absolute nightmare where they were like stealing money and whatever. I mean, it was just brutal. It was in 2017 or 2016, I think. And that's actually when I booted them, and we hired the bookkeeper. We hired the property manager and hired the maintenance tech. And then, I had another experience with third-party property management, and they did good. I mean, it was like, it was good. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is amazing. They weren't performing at the properties the way that Spaulding Group has performed, not anywhere close, but they were good. They were okay. It was like, this is all right. I wasn't super thrilled, but I wasn't like pissed off like the other company. And then as far as like, people ask us too, and just being the owner, you care more. Right? The third party people, like you gotta remember, they're getting paid a fee to manage your property. Like, yeah, they gotta do a good enough job to keep you happy, but they just want to collect the fee. The other thing is like, they're not looking to position the property really fast to sell. I mean, in all honesty, like, cause if it sells, they might lose that stream of income of the management fee. So, and anytime you can manage it in-house is great, but it's a lot of work. I mean, anytime you're dealing with people, you know, our COO, myself, and Ava, I mean, we're dealing with people all the time. There's just always issues that come up, and, you know, whatever. It's just when you deal with people and you're dealing with property, that's how it is. And so in any business, when you're dealing with people, there's just people problems, right? And you just have to navigate your way through them and figure it out and find solutions. So that's one issue, obviously, of having it in-house. You have all that to worry about, and you've got to, you know, if people quit, you got to figure it out, right? Now, us being in-house property manager or managing our own properties, we do not do third-party property management anymore, because once again, it's just like there's no money there. Like you're trying to like squeeze every freaking penny to I mean, you're squeezing every dime to make a penny. Like, it's just brutal. And it was not very fun. And so it wasn't a very good experience. So we're just like, you know what, it's not worth our time and energy with where we want to go as a company and have 50,000 units. It's not where we want to go, or it's not where we want to spend our time and energy, getting bogged down in managing other people's property. So we just stopped offering the service, and we do it all in-house. So, and it's been great. I mean, anytime we've taken a property like in-house or have taken over property, we're always able to get, you know, the revenues up. We're always able to, you know, cut out certain expenses and, you know, all that stuff. We've always been able to have great results. I mean, you know, here's a great example. If the storage units that I talked about before, that Josh and I bought and my family was involved in and Josh's grandma was involved in, we would have never made $1 million in 30 months. We made $1 million in 30 months on that deal because of the value added at the property. When we went to sell it, there was just someone willing to pay that much more for it because of the value added. We would have never been able to do that if it was third-party property management. Not even close. Not even close. We'd probably still have the property today because we wouldn't have repositioned it to be attractive enough for another buyer, to be honest. So that was the power of that. I mean, the same thing with the initial 4 units that I had. If that was third-party management, the stuff that happened there would have never. We would have never been able to. You know, we bought those. I think we were all in like $380,000, and just a few years later sold them for $610,000. Would have never been able to do that, because not as much care would have been done, and there would have been less urgency, right? Like, I'm someone, like, I'm walking around here fast, faster than anyone else, as I should, because I'm the owner of the business, right? And there's a sense of urgency. So when you have that sense of urgency, when you have that, you know, you care more, and it's also just easier for your employees, I think, too, managing things that you own versus you being the owner, having employees, and those employees also managing third party. It was hard. There's too many hands in the bucket, because like me as an operator, I wanted to do certain things at that property, but the owner didn't want to put the money in, or, you know, take the hit where we should have gotten 16 people. That place should have gone down to 50%, maybe 45% occupied for a year, and clean it up, and just start from zero essentially. And it would have been so much further ahead. That's what I would have done if I was the owner, but it just wasn't an option. And I get it. It's fine, right? Because there's a million ways to do it, and he didn't want to go that route. But it just, that's the issue with third-party management. John Hurley asks, can you speak more about how you started, the moves you were making while renting and saving while living in your apartment? Yeah, so John, you know, this is another side note. People are like, I'm going to buy a place and live in it. Wherever you live is an expense, right? So if you're buying a 4-unit apartment building, you're going to live in it for free. That's still an expense, because it's a spot that you cannot rent out and have income coming in, right? We're expensive human beings. So wherever we live is an expense. I chose not to live in my own apartments that I owned, but I lived off site at a different property. I didn't want people coming to my door, knocking on my door, knowing I was the owner, and then, you know, take care of all these issues. I wanted to get away. It would have drove me nuts living on my own property. And I wanted to get that thing full, because I viewed that as a business. I didn't want myself to personally not have to pay rent, just like, because then it's going to suck down the value of your business. You got an apartment that's not paying rent, right? Every dollar that drops to the net operating income is worth $16 when you have a 6% cap rate. So if I would have lived in an apartment, it could have taken the value down, you know, let's just call it $115,000. That's the value. So I chose to live offsite at a different apartment, because wherever we live, we are expensive human beings, living creatures. We pee, we poop, we eat, we consume electricity, we ruin shit, we put holes in walls sometimes, you know, whatever. we're expensive. We take up space. We're expensive. That's just a side note. So just going more into John's question, can you speak more about how I started and the moves I was making while I was renting, saving, while living in an apartment? So even before I was living in an apartment, I was still living at my mom and dad's place. So I was like 26 or something. Because I didn't care where I lived. I mean, it's awesome. I love living with my mom and dad and my sister, like, because I love my family. So like, I was lucky enough to have that opportunity. But I was like hardly ever, there's sometimes where like I'd be gone because at that time I was doing direct sales. I'd be gone for like 18 hours in a day. I'd get home at 3 a.m. from a mixer, like an event that I had to drive 6 hours to. I was just grinding away at the business, right? So my mindset was, when I was first starting, I wanted to keep my personal expenses as low as possible. And I didn't care. Like once I started making $5,000 a month, my expenses didn't go up. They did not go up at all. Nothing changed. Because instead of there being an expense, like every time I had a Jimmy John's sandwich, I'm like, shit, that's $6 less that I have to put towards the next building. Because at that point in time, every dollar always makes a big difference, right? Now, what I also realized though is I had to really push the pedal on making income, because you can only live that way for so long. Like once you start having kids and your life gets more complicated, whatever, your expenses just go up. Right. So you can only live. Now you can still choose to live very frugally, whatever. Some people might end up in divorce if they're married and kids and they're living the way I was living when I was 25. But that's what you have to come to realize. So this is my next point. What you have to come to realize at some point though, is the amount of money you can make is infinite. The amount of money that you can cut from your personal expenses it's a finite number. There's a limit on it. Because once you get to zero, you literally cannot spend any less money than zero. But once I get to $1,000 of revenue, or $1,000 that I'm making a month, and to $2,000 to $5,000 to $10,000, there's no cap that way. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep my expenses that was like $1,100 a month. I'm gonna keep my expenses $1,100 a month when I was making $2,200 a month. Kept them at $1,100 a month when I was making $4,000. Kept them at $1,100 a month until I was making $8,000. And I mean, I still really don't have that much outflow. I just don't. And so, but when I was starting, I would save up. And like I said before, like when I would go to Jimmy John's, literally in my mind, I would be like, and that's why I think Ryder's in here eating ramen noodles, because in his mind, he eats ramen noodles every day.
It's 24 cents.
It's 24 cents per meal. But in his mind, it's like, well, this is like $1. Like every dollar matters. Like when you're starting, every dollar really, really matters.
My girlfriend hates me.
Yeah, and his girlfriend hates him. And like, but when you're just starting, every single dollar really, really matters. And I would literally have that mindset. Anytime I go out to eat, anytime I'd spend money, anytime I'd buy, that was my mindset from like age 20 to like 27. That's just like, that was my mindset. Now I'm like, I'm a little bit different. Like if I buy bought my dad some, Pappy, some bourbon. And if you look that up, the 12-year on that, I spent a little bit of money on that. But like, so it's a little bit less concerning some of those smaller dollar amounts now, but it's different now, right? I've got cash flow producing assets that are paying for things that I normally wouldn't have bought in the past, right? The boat. Well, the boat's covered by cash flow producing assets. I have cash flow coming in from properties every month. Like, me making a boat payment and having a down payment on a boat is in relative terms is nothing. Plus, freaking A, in COVID times this last summer, there would have been nothing to do if we didn't have the boat. So it was a good choice. But John, to go back to your question, keep your expenses as low as possible. Find a way to raise how much you're making every single month and put in 80, 90, 100 hours a week to raise your income level, right? And what you got to realize, John, the other mindset that I had was, as I was building my direct sales, I knew that like I made like $11,000 in 2012. The whole year, like the year I graduated, I made $11,000. I had other buddies that were making $50,000 to $70,000 of salary. But I knew the $11,000 I was doing, I was keeping myself so busy, my schedule booked with appointments and just grinding direct sales. I knew that what the work that I was putting in was going to pay me later, right? And so you got to be able to have that mindset of like all the work that you do, you might only get paid $4,000. You're like, Jesus, I'm working like 105 hours a week. I'm making crap money right now. But you got to realize you're actually going to get paid for that work you put in 2 years later. And that's still my mindset. Like I have not been paid for anything that I've done in 2019 and 2020 yet. Zero. It's been an all-in investment. That's going to come at a later date. Last year, In 2020, I got paid for all the work I did from 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I didn't get paid for 19, what I was doing last year. So that's the mindset you got to have. John, then as your savings goes up, you can't be scared. Don't put it in a 401k is my advice. Don't put it in an IRA. Don't gamble it in stock market. Save until you get to a for sure thing, whether it's real estate. I don't know if that's your question, if it's getting into real estate or not, but whatever that sure thing is. And then don't be scared to write if you have $50,000 of savings, don't be scared once you find a great deal that's going to cash flow and all this stuff. Don't be scared to write a full check for $50,000 into the deal. Let it go. Let the money go. As I said before, I was always worried about a $6 Jimmy John sub, but I couldn't wait to write a $100,000 check in 2016. December 2016, I wrote a $100,000 check into a company. At that point, I was still worried about, I mean, let's be honest, I still think about every Jimmy John sub I get now, the $6. But I was still like, I'm like, damn, like this $6 Jimmy John's. But the next day, I wrote a $100,000 check. I couldn't wait to let the $100,000 go. Most people reverse. Most people will get $50,000 or $100,000 in their savings. They do not want to let that go, but have no problem getting the Jimmy John sub. Because it's such a short-term type thing, and they're like, it's only $6 versus my thing was like every $6 will add up to this 50 to 100, and then I got to trade this 50 to 100, John. I got to trade this 50 to 100 in for an asset. I got to trade my cash savings for an asset. I don't want to sit at my cash savings because it's not growing, it's not paying me anything more than 0.05% sitting in a bank. So I want to put it to work. John, does that answer your question? That was long-winded again, and I was all over, so how long are we into this right now? Oh man, we're always running out into about an hour. Next week we might, I know Ryder like tracked down a guest.
Secret guest. Secret.
Nick Minogue, I don't know if you're watching, but now I'm calling you out. You said you're busy. I'm busy too. Like, let's just find a time to do it over Zoom or whatever. We'll broadcast it live. It'll be cool. Nick, one of my, I don't think he was Mr. Minogue, Nick Minogue. I don't think he was a teacher at Milton High School when I was there, but he was assistant basketball coach. So that's how I got to know him, and then went to talk to their classes. Actually, that's how I got to meet Ryder, who joined our company 5 months ago. 5 months ago or whatever. Straight out of high school he did. He graduated high school, wanted to come work right here to be able to learn. Didn't go to college, whatever. But I actually went back to talk to Mr. Minogue's class, and he was in that class. That's how we first met, whatever. So Mr. Minogue was interested in coming on the show to ask me, Ryder, what was he?
Things that you wish you could high school, or
yeah.
you wish that high school taught you?
Yeah, so he was gonna come out and ask me a few questions about like what high school, what I wish I could have learned, and what my mindset was, whatever. But I thought it'd be cool instead of just him asking the question like everyone else asks questions. I thought it'd be cool to have him come on the show so we could have some like give and take, because he also got to see my mindset too as an athlete a little bit. So I think like him being able to tell some stories. I don't know if he remembers much or whatever, but I know I remember a lot. And so for us to be able to talk about some of those things too, because it really was relatable to a lot of things that I'm doing now. I mean, athletics was more important than any schooling I did. It was more important than high school. High school football was more important than high school grades and classes. The formative stuff is important. When you're in like first grade and learning how to do math, like that math is important. Like 1 + 1 and 100 + 100, and then like I got Bryn, my stepdaughter, already like doing like math, like just talking about millions and whatever, right? That stuff's important. But then like some of the stuff in high school, I'm like, I'm never gonna use this stuff. Some of the things that like 98% of the things in college, with my mindset, I'm never gonna use this stuff. But athletics, I knew that I could use the stuff that I had in athletics. I mean, the mindset that you have to have, the work ethic, working with other people, leading people, overcoming like adversity. And once again, it's just a game. So when I say overcoming adversity, it's in context. But when you're a college athlete, like to you, that's really adverse times if you're struggling on a team, right? So if you guys are 0-3, it's adverse to you at that point in life. So yeah, it'd be cool if we can, Ryder, if you can keep kind of reaching out. Yeah. I'll try to reach out to him too. Actually, I'm gonna hit up on Facebook. I'm gonna be like, dude, where you at? Let's go. So, and then actually I'll probably start having more guests on here every now and then too, to turn it into like where we can take your questions and maybe answer them together. I don't know. We just kind of freestyle it, free ball it every day, All right. Well, this has been the third episode of the Justin Spaulding Show. Thanks again so much for tuning in. If you're live, it's awesome. If you're watching this recording on YouTube, please subscribe. Please share this. If you're watching live or the recording, please share this with someone else that, not just anybody, but like anyone else that would truly get value out of it. And hopefully like we can kind of take more of these things too, because I think a lot of business and sports principles can also be used just anywhere in life. So hopefully this can be more of just like life talk as well as the business and money and real estate and sports component. I mean, we really haven't talked too much about sports, but yeah, if we can just intertwine everything, just share this thing. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to come to you guys live next week, hopefully with a guest. We'll see, and we'll talk to you guys later. Have a great weekend. Go Seattle Seahawks.
They play the Saints.
Oh, that's right. They play the Saints. Yeah.
But yeah,
you know,
Seahawks too.
Yeah. They play the Saints. I was thinking the Seahawks last week when I was doing the math in my head. Me and my buddy, I'm like, oh yeah, they'll play the Seahawks. We were trying to figure out the seeds. And I'm like, oh wait, no, New Orleans. Yeah, you're right, New Orleans. So Drew Brees' last year. It could be his last game.
Last game it will be.
Go Saints. See you guys. Enjoy the weekend.